Hello.
Hi, Greg.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you today?
I'm doing all right.
Hi, Greg.
Hi there. Hi, folks. So I know we have a lot to talk about technically, and then Kelly has an announcement she wants to make, I think. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we also have a bunch of other things to talk about. So let's kick it off. Let's get it rolling.
All right, sure. I'm dropping the link to the page that I'm going to speak to here in the chat and sharing my screen. All right, community update number 81. We are still in the process of Sprint 33. It rounds out. We'll start the next Sprint 34 on Monday. I will not go over in detail the bullet points listed here. You're welcome to read them. And I will speak more detailed to what's currently in play as we talk more about the components in just a few minutes. We are on track to release node 9.11 next week after we close out Sprint 33. So looking forward to do that. As always, you can check out the release plan to see what is currently in that plan for that release and what and we will add more things to it as they come in before the end of this week. Mercury requirements are available in the Features MD doc. The testnet is available. If you'll recall from the past 2 weeks, we have had some issues related to nodes dying unexpectedly. We did have to take down testnet for a while. We have brought it back up. It's still buggy. We have not resolved or found a resolution to 3593. However, we do know how to maintain it while we continue that investigation. We are also still using the public testnet to administer some tests related to the investigation of this issue. So if you are a very active testnet user, you might notice from time to time a validator or two going down and then coming right back up. Mostly what you would notice is a decrease in your peer count and then an increase in your peer count as that validator came back. You might also observe some different cadences of traffic happening across that network, but it's stable. You're still welcome to use it. We are also using it. And I'll speak more about this bug in just a few minutes. As always, you're welcome to select our page to learn more about the public testnet and how you can use it. I noticed this week in the public channel that we do have some new users attempting to join. So welcome to those new users. And we encourage you all to stand up a node and get familiar with how the testnet works. We do plan to run a community test tomorrow. That would be at 1400 UTC. The plan is Pavel has a PR that is currently in review and is not yet in our development branch. But this is a PR that is refactors how Casper manages messaging. So if you are a regular node and testnet user, you know how noisy it can be when Casper messages get thrown around the network. The intent of this PR is to improve that, where improve means node can perform better and Casper can be perform better when there's lots of messaging passed around. So what we plan to do for community test tomorrow is to run Pavel's branch in one of our development networks, bring that up several hours before the testing session starts, and then investigate kind of how that's working together and allow you guys to join that network if you'd like to. It'll be very green and very fresh. So if you're interested in seeing the cutting edge of let's see how this goes, please join us tomorrow at 1400 UTC. We still do have some known blockers to testnet to. You're welcome to take a look at RChain 3168 to see what those are. We talked last week about an alternative approach to releasing testnet 2, not as a full complement of its features. We are still interested in doing that, and it's kind of a race to see which feature's ready first, whether that is the Genesis issue of Rev, or test Rev in this case, or if it will be cost accounting. And so that's the current plan. There are the risks to code completion for Mercury. That first bullet point is the same as it's been for many weeks now. I added another bullet point because we are vetting a proposal to re-implement the registry with a more lightweight version that's written in Rollin. This was presented to the team today during stand-up. I know some of the developers have been talking about it. Basically, the current implementation of the registry does a lot. It's intended to be a large feature. But not, and it's a kind of a blocker in getting cost accounting in because of its complexity. And we're in a situation now where the proposal recognizes we don't need to use all of the things the registry offers right now. We could use a lighter weight version of the registry in order to get cost accounting in in a more seamless way and ideally quicker. That's the part that we have to vet and make sure that that's accurate, but that's something that was put on the table as of today. It's certainly not currently scoped for work, and we would need to understand what the cost of that might be. In the consensus module, we have identified that there's more work needed to merge a PR that is intended to allow Casper to ignore volatile events. This is a known blocker to bringing in cost accounting, and so Wukash, we've pivoted. We've added Wukash to this effort, and so he's going to work on unblocking that, the merge of the work for 3611 by doing the work for 3638. That work is understood, and I anticipate him getting started on that ASAP. And so that's happening. The PR is in, as I mentioned, Pavel's PR to refactor the feedback loop is in and under review, and we do plan to play with it tomorrow in the community test in one of our dev networks. We also have PRs in review to complete the delivery of the methods needed to build out the validator unbonding and bonding protocol, as well as validator rewards. I expect those to go in before the end of this week. We talked a little bit about at Stand Up today in terms of how to accelerate that. So I'm looking forward to getting those and getting Kent working on the completion of that protocol. In Rollin, we are prioritizing work related to so that we can resolve the problem where Node is unable to process a Genesis block that includes the 16,000 accounts holding rock. We have a new, so when we last spoke, we had figured out that the bottleneck was in the rev generator, and that Rollin was kind of exploding, trying to do this, all of this vault generation in parallel. So the plan right now is to see what happens if we serialize the creation of those rev vaults, and see if we can allow Node to complete that work. So that actually Joe is running a test for that just now in one of the dev networks, and we're curious to see how that goes. Last week, I mentioned that we were really eager to understand more and get a better handle on how to estimate the work that's going to help bring cost accounting into the code base. Cost accounting as a feature exists. It is blocked from coming into the code base for a variety of reasons. There are now 3 remaining integration tests, or Casper tests that are failing, and we have to resolve conflicting blocks in order to bring it into the code base and run it in testnet, for example. So we met we had several conversations last week related to that. We do at this point have a more fine-grained view of what's outstanding, and specifically we're talking about peak, merge. For some scenarios, we're not going to deliver the complete understanding of what merging for blocks means, but for some of them we do need to deliver merge. We understand that we need to deliver pre-charge, which is what happens before you make that deployment, as well as refund, which is the refund of any flow that was not used in the execution of your deployment. We have captured all of these issues. We also, as part of that work, captured issues that we recognize are optimizations or support that would help harden this feature. And so we now have a very clear view in Jira and tickets of what needs to be done to complete cost accounting. And most of that work is already in progress, but now it's better documented, and we'll have a better handle for estimating it as we go into planning for Sprint 34 this week. We have started work on RChain 3427. Actually, Tim will pick it up tomorrow at his start of day. It's the addition of support for unforgeable name-bound rev vaults. This will provide the work that's needed to resolve the ability to, will allow the ability to control a rev vault via a smart contract. Chris and Dan have been talking about this, and we are looking forward to seeing if the work that goes into 3427 is truly everything that 3260 will need to be complete and to allow that feature for DApp developers. The RNode team is working very, very closely with the SRE team to investigate the issues that we're having on testnet. without going back too far, at this point, we have, since I spoke last week, we've implemented a number of new metrics into Node and exposed them via our testing, our monitoring infrastructure, whether it's Grafana or in the InfluxDB, to get try and get as fine-grained a view as possible on what's happening related to memory as a network is running and validators are, we see an increase in their use of memory, and then ultimately we see them crash. And so that's the work that's happening right now. They're kind of the team, SRE team and the Node team are suspecting a memory leak, and they're not sure yet. So that's the work that's happening just now. We are running tests in a variety of networks to try and hone in on this and to get a better handle on what's going on with Node in this network environment when those validator nodes are dying. In our space, we're continuing the work to implement peak. Again, that's part of unblocking cost accounting. We have a plan to discuss findings related to investigations of how the new R space is working. So Kayvon's been working on this, and the team plans to meet early next week to review his findings and to decide what, if any, changes we would be able to, well, number one, that we have to make, and number two, that we might be able to make before Mercury is code complete. The SRE team is collaborating with the Node team, and that's a big part of their day right now. They are also working, they've been upgrading not only the Node software, but working with the Whiteblock team related to changes that they've made in their platform so that we can get tests running again in Whiteblock. And the SRE team is also preparing to support the handoff of the Sandbox testnet to the DApp community. This is something that we talked about in community test last week. I know it's been part of the conversation with at the DApp community call, and we're very much looking forward to being able to hand that off so that they have a bit of a playground to play in a network that's not necessarily testnet. So with that, are there any questions related to the development status as of today? Okay, well, the other thing that I need to share is that late last week, I tendered my resignation as project manager for the core development team. This is not a decision made lightly, and it's also a decision made for personal reasons for myself and my family. And it's not without a bit of regret. It's been truly an honor and most certainly a tremendous amount of fun to help lead this development team and participate in this project. I will miss it. And I will very much also miss this community and being able to share with you how we're doing and what we're doing.
Thank you, Kelly. We really, really appreciate the work you've done on behalf of the RChain cooperative, and it's just been exemplary work. It will be really, we're already interviewing folks, and it's just really hard to find anyone who could fill your shoes. I just don't think no one could quite fill your shoes, but it's because you're just one of a kind. I really appreciate the work.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I'm humbled by that, and two, you know, what makes this development team great is not me. And that's something that we've been talking about as a development team. You know, basically my role in that team has been to get out of their way so they can do what they do best. I have absolute confidence in this development team to continue doing what they do best, which is to work, you know, in a very mature and healthy way with one another, to be focused on what Mercury is and know how to deliver it, and then to continue to be productive and release software on a regular cadence. That is the team. And it's been, you know, fun to ride along with them, but you know, that's certainly what makes this team great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that the community is probably, I do actually have a few questions about the technical update, but you know,
Sure.
Since we're already on this topic, I'll continue down that. I know the community will want to know sort of how the co-op is handling
your audio is very muddled, Greg.
Transition. So I just want to let.
Can anybody else hear Greg?
We've lost Greg.
Greg,
We've
we
lost
lost
Greg.
you.
Know that I intentionally.
Greg,
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
much better. Please Just start again, please.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. I just was saying that I know that the community will want to know sort of how the co-op is handling Kelly's transition. And the first thing is since whatever Meta's transition in October, I where the management. I took steps to make sure that the management team did in fact have some built-in redundancy. So the truth of the matter is that we have four manager roles that with it's like four engines on an airplane, so that if you lose one, you can still make it to the landing. So Chris and Kelly, Ned, and myself have all been engaged in team management. And as Kelly said, most of that's just empowering and supporting the team and getting out of their way. But so Chris and Ned and I will close ranks. We've also in the next couple of weeks to support the transition, but we also have just a number of candidates that have come forward to because it's an exciting role. It's an exciting project, and I already conducted an interview yesterday, and we have sort of a four gated interview process that we outlined together with Chris and Ned and Bill and myself yesterday to make sure that ultimately the team is comfortable with whoever steps up. I also want to echo Kelly's comments that essentially that the work that has been that's going to get us the rest of the way to the mainnet has been ticketed. We know what we need to do. So that part of the management process is well in hand. So most of it is going to be around making sure that we stay on task, stay on target, and that as we roll out new features in the release cycle, that testnet is healthy. And then the one place where I have had concerns, and I've spoken at length with Chris and Ned about this, is that Kelly really has grown a kind of holistic and organic understanding of the rock to rev conversion process. So Kelly is a team member that really, really understands that process, and Chris feels that he's spent enough time to sort of have the picture in his mind, but we're going to make sure that as a part of the transition that we do kind of do a brain dump with Kelly on her understanding of that the rock to rev conversion as she envisions it, and make sure we haven't missed any operational wisdom that Kelly has gleaned over the last several months. So that everyone feels comfortable that we've got that well in hand. So let me stop there and check and see if there are any community questions about that before returning to some technical questions.
I just want to say it's really sorry to see you go, Kelly. Even though I've never really talked to you personally once, your presence is going to be sorely missed, and I think you're awesome.
Thank you for that, Daryl. I appreciate that, and thank you for everyone for the kind words in the chat. Many, many thanks.
I agree.
And also, it's very much a part of the RChain cooperative ethos, family first. So we fully support, Kelly's decision, when it comes to things around family and those kinds of things. That has been my mantra: family first. If people need, family health days, family first. And in this case, we're very, very supportive of Kelly's decision.
Many thanks for that. I appreciate that.
Of course. So returning to some of the technical discussion. So I just want to understand a little bit more and I think maybe the community, like internally, I think when we say roll out peak, I think we know that the R space side of peak is well in hand, and that what needs to be done is integrating that with the rest of the components. So maybe you could speak just a little bit to what's left on peak.
Sure. So delivering and just kind of to echo and make sure we're all on the same page, delivering peak, which is a feature that allows, basically it allows the ability to look at a channel without registering that anything changed on it. And this is really important for cost accounting when they need to just be able to look and see did something change, and by virtue of being able to look and not registering a change, we therein do not create a conflict that would result in conflicting blocks. That's at a very high level why peak as a feature is so important. Peak as a feature though has to be implemented not only kind of across the ecosystem of the platform. So in our space, which is that's done, that merged yesterday. In Rollin, we also saw a merge go in yesterday related to bringing in peak to Rollin, and then in Casper, so that the consensus algorithm can understand peak as well. All the components of the platform have to understand peak, with the exception of communications. So to that end, Wukash really took the lead on bringing peak to our space and recognizing that other developers were fully booked doing other things. Wukash also stepped in and brought peak to Rollin, and that's the PR that merged yesterday. And so our last thing that we need to do is to bring peak to Casper. This one's a little bit more hairy. It was very straightforward bringing peak to Rollin and our space. It's a little bit more hairy bringing it to Casper. Along the way, we have learned some things to be able to we've learned some things about doing that we need to master before we can say peak is done in Casper. One of those things is implementing merging of contract calls. That is something that Wukash is picking up first thing on his tomorrow. And the other thing is related to the registry, and that's why I spoke about proposed changes to the registry. We need, we're going to need to either make some changes to the existing registry or re-implement it as proposed. Either way, we have to do something to the registry so that we can support peak with that as well. And so that's in a more detailed view of what we're doing right now related to peak and why it is that it's so important. Greg, are there any other questions that you had about that or the trajectory for that?
No, that was exactly the
okay.
Kind of familiar with these features that we just sort of use a code word like peak.
Right.
And people don't understand. It's like, and we have this big articulated map in our heads, but the rest of the co-op doesn't quite know what we're referring to or how much we know about what's done and what's not done and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to bring that into the foreground a little bit, and also because one of the things that's really, one of the things that makes this project shine is how cool the tech is. And so talking a little bit, more about, some of the details of the tech, I think it serves the project well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to touch base. So has the volatility change that Kent and oh gosh, was it Artur?
Well,
Wukash.
Kent, Artur, and Wukash are all involved in so basically we're I talked last week about volatile events, and so Kent has a PR that is in review to make a modifications to conflict so that when there is a volatile event, it does not register as a conflict. It just happens. Again, a volatile event is something that happens as part of a deploy, but it's not permanent. So it happens and then something else happens. And what we don't want to do is have that volatile event registered as a conflict by the time that the block gets proposed, because again, then we have conflicting blocks and that's a problem. So what we have learned is that Kent put together a very nice PR that's been well reviewed and under a lot of scrutiny. It's pretty novel in its approach. We have learned that currently it is, our ability to merge it is blocked because when we merge it as it is right now, it will introduce a number of bugs. We absolutely don't want that. So what we are going to do is prioritize, Wukash is going to prioritize implementing the merging of contract calls. I'm speaking very specifically about RChain 3638. Let me just plop it in here if you're deeply interested. After he is complete bringing in the merging of contract calls, and that is in the code base, then when we do merge the work that Kent put in related to volatile events, we will not introduce bugs. And that's the current plan. That's what we're working quickly to do. I anticipate, based on how Wukash has talked about it, that we should be, he should be complete by end of week, and that would unblock then the merge of the volatile events PR. And from that point forward, we then could continue to complete the rest of the peak implementation.
Thank you so much. That was a color that I thought was very important. And then I want to add a little bit more to the mix here. People may remember that while we were together in Poland in the spring, I put together a Rollin 1.1 spec. And if you look carefully, the work around the Rollin 1.1 spec hints at a bunch of optimizations that can be done as a result of these syntactic changes. So if you put the syntactic changes in, then you can do a whole bunch of optimization for getting rid of events that should not have to touch the tuple space because they have no transactional import. And you can see that from the syntax of the code. And now the work on volatility is anticipatory of that optimization.
So we want the optimization.
So what it means is that they're now able to recognize certain events as they happen at the block level, and then when we add the changes for Rollin, we'll be able to analyze those, that we can apply those optimizations, which we now have code support for, just by code analysis before the code ever gets run. Nice. So this is a, it's when these kinds of things happen where it's like, you get these unplanned wins. That's when you know that the design is working. And the other side of this is and I'd like to use this to foreshadow a conversation, which is that all of this goes into the speed proposition that we've always talked about, the performance proposition that we've always talked about, which is that the computational model, whether you call it the row calculus or Rolang or whatever it is, that the underlying abstractions that make transactional computation possible also give us the ability to find the conflicts and know when the conflicts have actual transactional import. And the work that we're engaged in right now is all about that. And that's why we can achieve such impressive speeds. So all of this detailed work around volatility and around Rollin 1.1 and the block merge itself, each of those are features that are directly related to us being able to pack blocks with transactions that can all run simultaneously or concurrently or in parallel. And because we have this capability, we can achieve far greater transactional speeds, which means that we can do things like put data on the blockchain. And if you compare it to Vitalik's recent July 13th analysis about the future of Ethereum, where he proposes that they use Bitcoin Cash Network as the next iteration of Ethereum for handling the data side of things. I think that that's pretty much putting up the white flag. I think that's a pretty, I mean, unless I'm misreading what's being said, then I'm reaching out to some Ethereum folks. But that's pretty much waving the white flag, saying we surrender. We don't know how to make this scale. Essentially, what they've just said is they can't make the Ethereum network scale, and so they're going to jump ship over to the Bitcoin Cash network. And even there, you're not looking at the kinds of transaction speeds that RChain has already evinced in our tests. Nowhere close. So I think that I just want people to kind of get a sense of how real this is, right? And at the end of 2015, I warned Vitalik, hey, you're going to have these major security issues related to the exposure from writing smart contracts. And then those showed up in April of 2016, right? And we showed that with Rollin, you can defeat those kinds of bugs and many others. And then I also said, look, there will be this specific set of issues around being able to scale transactionally, getting the transaction speeds up. And now we're beginning to see the rubber meet the road. We're just marching to plan, and we're seeing the kinds of transaction speeds that we claimed and predicted. And Ethereum is essentially waving the white flag that their architecture will not get them there. And kudos to Vitalik for being open and honest and transparent and saying, and trying to solve the problem practically. Right. So there's no disparagement, nothing like that. I mean, we're all engineers, we're all scientists, we're all just trying to find solutions that work. And I'm merely trying to call attention to the math and the engineering and the science around RChain, that it's working. Essentially, that's what I'm saying, guys. It's working. So sometimes we hit bumps in the road with respect to schedules or other kinds of things, but at the end of the day, the math works. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I know it was a long-winded thing, but I just wonder if there were any questions or comments about that.
Well, I think this is just really important news because it gives us a great opportunity to kind of call out to the world and say, hey, we're here.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. And it was precisely because of some of the things we were able to point out in 2016 about the security profile of Rollin that brought us some attention. Hopefully, this will bring us some attention as well. Moving on to other items of business, there's something that's really important, which is that people may have noticed that KuCoin allowed withdrawals yesterday. There was a lot of, I think, sort of language barrier issues. We really didn't understand what they were asking. We've been communicating with them about this since June 6th. So a month and a half, I guess, or a month and a bit. That they should at least allow withdrawals, and that there were conditions under which they could reopen trading. They've agreed to the conditions. We're wordsmithing a notice that has to go out with respect to addresses that will not be any transactions flowing through those addresses will not be honored for the ROC to Rev conversion. That's almost done, and I fully expect trading to open as soon as we have all of that wordsmithing done, and that's done via. They also want to make sure that there's multiple links, between the two different, between the co-op and KuCoin. So that way, we're sort of out of the mix, other than to make sure that nobody's scammed. One of the things that was holding things up, and we did not understand, and they didn't articulate in a way that we could understand, was that they were looking for police reports associated to the incident with the scammers. So initially, I offered them the communications with the FBI, which is the agency that is actually pursuing the matter. And for whatever reason, that they didn't like those. So then I offered them the report that we filed with the Spanish authorities, and they accepted that. Even though withdrawals will be open, the scammers' addresses should be blocked for any and all transactions. And that was a part that was holding up the withdrawals. So that's all been sorted out. We got through all the miscommunications and language issues and got that sorted. And you kind of have a sense of what the issues are around opening up the trading, and that should be done relatively soon, in any day or any minute now. Any questions on that? Okay. Well, I think that's about it in terms of the updates. I will give one quick update. A character has come into my care. I wasn't looking for it, but
how many weeks? Well, we lost your audio, but he or she is super cute.
So, but certainly wasn't expecting an extra little bundle of responsibilities. But she's a lot of fun. And speaking of bundle, her name is Fiber, as in the fiber bundles, like the hot vibration. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd end with something a little bit fun and enjoyable. She's really smart and a lot of fun, and quite a handful to take care of.
That's great.
Yeah. All right, guys. So with that, I'm gonna ring off unless there are any burning questions. Okay. I will see you next week. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.